To survive the Ice Age apocalypse, relying on supplies alone would not be enough. Han Feng concludes that his ability to manipulate plants is his only hope. He sits down to eat a plateful of soybeans and says he planted all those grains himself, using his skill. But his ability is random, and he hasn't figured out how to activate it yet. So, he decides to do a taste test to make sure what he's growing is edible. Han Feng eats the soybeans and confirms that it is edible. With that, he calms down and says that at least his ability is useful for producing food. We have an X-Man here, guys. We have an X-Man. Then he notices his hand glowing green and red and says the next step is to figure out how to actually use his ability. Han Feng thinks that until now, he had only tested the skill on soybeans. Then he opens the refrigerator and observes some food inside. He needs to check if the ability works on other plants as well. But the boy was precocious. He wakes up and asks if he had just passed out. He holds a broccoli in his hands. Han Feng says he has a horrible headache. Using this skill takes a lot out of his mind and body. And well, shortly after, he says he learned something about his ability. Before passing out, he tried to use his ability on several different plants. So, let's go back to a few minutes before. Han Feng holds a cabbage and a carrot. He starts thinking about how some plants don't react to his ability. Now he holds a sprig of wheat that has sprouted in his hand. This time he is happy and thinks about how some plants grow from seeds to become complete plants, just like soybeans. Han Feng falls to the ground after an explosion. So, he says that in the meantime, some plants just explode. After explosions, they turn into substances that look like charcoal but are very light. But that's not a problem, because our protagonist used 2 of Q1, placing these glowing balls in an iron bucket and saying that they can be used to generate heat, like coal. The guy is almost becoming Steve from Minecraft in creative mode, just a little while away. Han Feng places his hands on the container with the red-hot substance and smiles in relief. He says he no longer has to worry about how to stay warm. Then he says that he then tried many more times, but without success. Han Feng, with his green hand, thinks, "Focus, control your breathing." And yes, it worked. Han Feng is startled to see a giant broccoli sprouting in his hand, but he soon becomes discouraged. The skill's success rate is too random. He says he can't find any pattern for activating the skill. There needs to be some principle behind how this ability works. Buddy, you're literally making plants sprout out of absolutely nothing. Isn't that too abnormal for you? Isn't it? Han Feng says that he at least already has some understanding of the conditions for activating his ability. He sits in a meditation position and says the key is in his consciousness. Han Feng closes his eyes and thinks, imagine yourself in nature. In his mind, Han Feng, naked, walks through a forest surrounded by wild animals. His body and his mind are part of nature. Han Feng slowly opens his eyes, surrounded by a green glow. He smiles and says his ability is connected to his consciousness. Then he goes to the kitchen again and observes the food on the table. He wants to test his skill with meat this time. Han Feng places his green hand, which glows brightly, on a piece of raw meat. The flesh does not react to Han Feng's touch. Han Feng despairs and asks if his ability only works on plants. He tries to use his ability on the flesh again, asking it to work. But unfortunately, the flesh still doesn't react. While meditating, he can feel 2 distinct colors. Han Feng says that he hadn't tried using a red light yet, then decides to use the red light on the meat. Our big boy wraps his meat in red power while holding on really tight. But nothing. The only thing he achieved was to become angry. He squeezes the poor flesh until it turns into a gooey red mass and throws it to the ground in disgust. But as he does so, he realizes that the flesh has reacted to the red light. Han Feng touches the meat and says it looks like it was cooked, or something like that. He wonders if the red light's only function is to heat things up. Han Feng watches his hand glow blue and concludes that it is more than that. It is like a disintegration process. It can't be. So he takes some soy and considers that if green light represents the evolution of matter, red light is the opposite, disintegration. It is then that Han Feng focuses the green and red lights in his hands and wonders what would happen if he combined them. Let's test it. It is then that he brings together the red and green lights, and an intense glow appears. I think he's going to blow up this house. And didn't it work? Our little boy is amazed to see that the piece of meat has grown. But where did the soybeans that were in your hand go? Han Feng looks at the meat and thinks that the soybeans have perhaps fused with the meat. He examines the meat, surprised, and says it's incredible. It looks, smells, and has the texture of real meat, but is even fresher. Then he says, one more time. Han Feng tries to replicate the meat growth process, but to no avail. So he wonders why all attempts have failed. Tired, he gives up trying to replicate the meat growth process and says he will try again later. Han Feng looks at the results of his tests. Meat, broccoli, wheat, and thinks that the day was still productive. Then he smiles confidently, imagining himself on top of the world, wearing a superhero outfit, and says that if he masters his power, he will be on top of the post-apocalyptic world. Han Feng, excited, imagines the abundance abundance of food he will have after the apocalypse. But soon he stops imagining things and remembers that he needs a gun to protect himself and that he is completely defenseless. Look, it's not for nothing, but you have powers. You could make a tree grow and knock everyone out with a stick like that girl from the superhero school movie, right? Oh no! I just revealed my age. Han Feng says he needs to hurry and find a weapon before the temperatures drop. And yes, things are starting to get weird. He looks out the window as it starts to snow. The apocalypse has arrived. A night cityscape covered in snow. Han Feng watches from above and says that it is really happening. He walks through the snow-covered streets and says that temperatures will drop to minus 45 degrees in a week and that he urgently needs a gun. There's just one problem. Buying guns is illegal and he has no connection to getting them. However, he remembers that he works in construction and that millions are at stake in all his projects. From afar, he sees a gangly blonde, asking if another guy knows Lao Wang from the Shigang Lida group. He says he's practically his older brother. Han Feng observes everything and thinks he has already seen him there. The blonde guy offers the guy a cigarette, saying they were given to him by his older brother. Han Feng observes the man's exaggerated clothing style. Here in the region, the man is known as Joe the Homeless. Han Feng observes Li Ziyu, who everyone calls Brother Li, and says that he lives in the same neighborhood as him. Brother Li has a reputation for being responsible for construction projects and seems to know everyone in the region. A man offers Brother Li a cigarette, but he refuses, saying he only smokes the Huazi brand. The man asks Brother Li what he is doing. Li responds that he is helping his older brother with a project and that he had promised to take him to a sauna to show his gratitude. Our protagonist observes Brother Li, saying that he doesn't have a real job, but acts as if he is always busy. Looks like me. I identified myself. While walking, Li Ziyu celebrates closing a 20 million deal with his big brother, and then immediately asks if another 10 million deal needs his help. Looking at Li, our big boy says that maybe he has the contacts he needs. Then Han Feng greets Brother Li. Li looks at Han Feng without recognizing him. He asks if they know each other. Then our protagonist says it's him, Xiao Han. He states that they have known each other for some time. Brother Li briefly remembers him. Xiao Han. Li Ziyu says he is swamped with work and apologizes for his bad memory, asking what he can do for him. Han Feng hesitates, not knowing how to broach the topic with Li Ziyu. So he gets close to the blonde's ear and tells him what he needs. One fucking the K-47, just kidding. I don't know if that was the gun he asked for. Li Ziyu, surprised, asks why he needs that. Han Feng is embarrassed and completely uncomfortable with the situation. He doesn't know what to say. Li tells Han Feng not to do anything illegal, that weapons are a serious matter, and refuses to help him. Han Feng insists that he misunderstood him. Then our big boy explains that this is a personal matter, that he needs the gun for self-defense. Han Feng recalls how, while cycling to work, he bumped into an old man who spat in his face. He confronted the old man, but the bastard spat in his face again. And what did Han Feng do? Well, he beat up the old man. But the worst would happen. The old man came out with his clothes all torn up, promising that he would take revenge. The next day, the old man, accompanied by his henchmen, waits for Han Feng, who is beaten and hears threats. Han Feng says that he has never felt so humiliated, and that is why he needs a weapon for self-defense. Look, it's a good reason. Whether it was invented or not, it was a good story. Then Li Ziyu is shocked by the old man's behavior, cursing him and calling him a pig. Han Feng didn't expect this reaction and says that he probably missed a point in the story. Li Ziyu excitedly puts his hand on Han Feng's shoulder and says not to say anything else. He will solve his problem. Li says he will call his older brother at that time. Han Feng thanks him. Face, what a cool guy. I don't even know him exactly, but he's the man. The blonde says they will go by bus. He says that if it weren't because his Panamera was in the workshop, he would take Han Feng himself. But breaking all expectations, our protagonist says, don't worry, because he has a car. It's a good thing he knows the world is going to end, because the amount of debt this guy owed isn't written down. Inside the truck, Li asks how much Han Feng paid for that car. Han Feng responds that he paid around 700,000, and then some. Li says it wasn't a bad deal. He tells Han Feng to turn left at the next corner and takes a selfie. And well, Li Ziyu posts the photo he took, complaining that his new SUV is still uncomfortable to sit in. This guy is awesome, haha. I would do the same thing. The blonde, unaware of what is about to happen, comments on how the weather suddenly changed, from summer to winter overnight. Then finally, Li Ziyu and Han Feng arrive at a place where other men are waiting for them. One of the men approaches and greets them. The man invites Han Feng and Li Ziyu to go see the boss, Lao Li, saying he has matters to attend to. Li Ziyu is excited by the offer, but before they enter, the boss's henchmen are impressed by Li Ziyu's SUV, that is, our protagonist. Li Ziyu says he paid about 700,000 for the SUV, lying in front of the car owner. The blondie just moved up in my character rankings. Haha! Lao Liu observes the boys and asks Li Ziyu what he is doing there at such a time. And well, you're in front of one of the biggest mafiosos in the region. What do you do? Of course, the first thing the blonde says to Lao Liu is to ask for a fucking cigarette. The kingpin gets angry and orders Li Ziyu to speak quickly, as he is busy. The blonde explains to Lao Liu that Han Feng wants to buy something from him. Lao Liu asks what he wants. A gun? Han Feng is apprehensive about his boss's reaction. The boss scoffs, saying he thought Li Ziyu would present something more interesting to him than a gun. Lao Liu calls one of his henchmen, Chiang Zi. Chiang Zi hands the gun to Han Feng. It costs 6,000. Han Feng interrupts Lao Liu, saying that he thought of something a little bigger. Han Feng makes the Illuminati symbol and asks for a weapon with a telescopic sight. Lao Liu stares at our big boy. Han Feng is a little apprehensive about the boss's look. Lao Liu bristles at the thought of the sniper rifle, asking if they were talking about a real rifle. He curses them both, saying that it's not a mall and that they can't order whatever they want. Li Ziyu calms Lao Liu, saying there is a reason Han Feng wants a rifle. He starts to tell a story about Lao Liu and his wife's past 5 years ago, but there's not even time to make up the story. Lao Liu slams the table, cursing and lamenting about the betrayal of his wife and children. What? I didn't expect that. Han Feng is embarrassed and says that the stories Li Ziyu makes up are becoming ridiculous even for him. Lao Liu, determined, states that he will get the rifle, but that it may take a few days. Han Feng thanks Li Ziyu. Lao Liu orders Chiang Zi to get a rifle and ammunition. Li Ziyu says that Han Feng can get the gun in minutes. As he said, Lao Liu hands the gun to Han Feng, saying it is a gift. Han Feng is left without a reaction. My god, everyone is good people in this work except that slut. But who cares about her? I'm loving it, man. Han Feng catches Lao Liu's attention. And well, as he was very nice to him, Han Feng tells him about a friend who works in the government, and that because of the abnormal weather, the government will limit the purchase of supplies soon, and it is best to stock up on everything in advance. Lao Liu is interested. Han Feng watches Lao Liu's reaction with a serious expression to demonstrate that what he said was true. Lao Liu says he understands. Then Lao Liu says goodbye to the boys, cursing Li Ziyu just to keep from breaking the habit. Li Ziyu says that he resolved Han Feng's situation masterfully. He says that his brother was in a good mood that day, and that he would probably even give him a cannon if he asked. Han Feng thanks him and says he will give cigarettes as a reward. Li Ziyu refuses the cigarette, saying he does it because he likes to help others, and that he prefers Huazi cigarettes, as other brands make him cough. He himself says not to overdo it, and that 7 or 8 packs would be enough. Li Ziyu says that once he gets paid for the project, he will take Han Feng to a sauna. But while the blonde was talking, Han Feng thought that with the supplies and the weapons secured, he was ready for the first days of the apocalypse. That is, it was time to focus on his powers, that if he managed to master the problem of food, his chances of survival would increase drastically. Joe, the homeless man, is shocked to see Han Feng fly out of the place. Buddy, are you well? Our protagonist screams in pain, saying he hurt his leg. Han Feng, lying in the snow, feels severe pain and says he thinks his leg is broken. Wow, is walking in the snow really shit? He asks Li Ziyu to take him to the hospital. Li Ziyu confesses to Han Feng that he doesn't have a driver's license and can't drive, but he has an idea and suggests Han Feng lean on him so they can walk. And well, the guy just took our big boy on his back. The guy turned so red, he turned into a pepper. This guy is awesome, I told you. Han Feng suggests to Li Ziyu that they take a taxi, and he pays. So after a lot of pain and suffering, Han Feng and Li Ziyu arrive at a hospital. At the front desk, a woman says goodbye to a coworker named Ji Yan and wishes him care on the night shift. Her colleague wishes her the same. Ji Yan watches the window and says the snow is getting heavier. The phone rings. A nurse asks the head nurse, "This hot girl you see, I mean, for Ji Yan to go to the corridor as they are short on staff." The head nurse replies that she is already leaving. Han Feng laments, thinking that he really broke his leg. The doctor explains to Han Feng that there is a stable fracture in his right tibia and that he will need to immobilize it. He asks you to stay under observation for an hour and then get the medicine. Han Feng is amazed at how unlucky he is. How did that have to happen right before the apocalypse? Li Ziyu says goodbye to Han Feng, saying that he has to go and to call him if he needs anything. Han Feng asks him to be careful. Han Feng sighed, disheartened. Our poor boy, sitting in the hospital waiting room, watches the movement. He observes how the hospital is full of people injured because of the sudden snowfall and low temperatures. He calculates the absurd number of patients and thinks about how long it will take to receive their medicine. But that's when Nurse Jin approaches. A nurse asks head nurse Jin to check a patient's bandages. She answers yes. The beautiful lady gives instructions to the other nurses. She alerts the other nurses to administer epinephrine if the patient's heart rate drops below 80. Han Feng watches Nurse Jin working and instantly falls in love, saying how amazing she is, being head nurse at such a young age. Han Feng watches Nurse Jin caring for a patient and praises her, saying how skilled and kind she is to everyone. Of course, for sure, lots of skill. Nurse Jin is very pretty, too pretty, but she seems to be very distracted. The man who is next to our protagonist calls the head nurse. Nurse Jin responds, saying she's on her way. She apologizes to you, saying that the team is reduced and asks if she can come come back later to assist you. You complain about back pain that started suddenly. He says the pain is getting worse, but in the meantime, he takes a photo of our dear Nurse Jin's nether parts. Oh man, I hope our protagonist breaks this old man's face. That can't be done. The gentleman asks if she can take a look and tell him what is causing the pain. With a smile on her face, Nurse Jin says they need an x-ray to be sure. The old man asks her to take a quick look, pulling her close and grabbing her. Embarrassed, she tries to move away, saying that she is very sensitive to tickles and that he should wait for the doctor. The bastard watches with a sadistic smile. He tells Nurse Jin that he thinks the pain is a little lower. Dude, why? But our hero doesn't wear a cape. He has a broken leg and he grows soybeans. Han Feng gets up and gives the old man a crutch. The old man falls to the ground, groaning in pain. Nurse Jin asks if he is okay. Han Feng apologizes, saying it was the first time he used a crutch. Then our protagonist approaches the old man's cell phone and asks him if his cell phone isn't broken. The man shouts at Han Feng not to touch his cell phone. He swears at our boy and demands that he give his cell phone back. Han Feng thinks, it was as I imagined. Han Feng accuses the man of filming under the nurse's skirt and harassing her. He shows the photo of Nurse Jin that the old man took and threatens him, telling him to give him a good reason not to call security and take him to a police station. You remain silent. Han Feng says that he will not return the cell phone and that the next time he sees his face, he will post the photo on the internet. The old man breaks out in a cold sweat, and well, he runs out of the hospital, and Nurse Jin watches him thinking, didn't he say he had back pain? He ran really fast. Han Feng asks if there really are such naive people in the world. Our hero warns Nurse Jin that the old man had just filmed up her skirt. The nurse gets scared and asks if he is serious. Han Feng hands the cell phone to Nurse Jin and says she can decide whether to delete the photo or call the police. He advises her to be more careful so that perverts don't take advantage of her. Nurse Jin thanks him for defending her, but asks if his ankle wasn't injured. Han Feng shouts in delight. Nurse Jin finishes bandaging Han Feng's ankle and asks if it doesn't hurt anymore. He thanks her, but the cutest nurse in the world says she should be the one to thank her and says she won't let any more bad guys get away. Nurse Jin says she'll spank them next time, but our boy sure wasn't listening to a word she was saying anymore. Han Feng's foot was completely sunk into the nurse's big breasts. Our hero, completely embarrassed, says that she doesn't seem to be paying attention at all. Other nurses call the head nurse because they need help. Nurse Jin asks Han Feng to remember to come back in a week to reevaluate his ankle. Han Feng thinks that in a week, well, we already know what will happen in a week. Han Feng walks with difficulty, leaning on crutches, and says that he probably won't see Nurse Jin again. The day dawns, and the snow falls heavily. A news program interrupts the program with urgent news. In the next 24 hours, all regions of the country will experience heavy snowfall and a sudden drop in temperatures. The reporter talks about how temperatures are plummeting around the world. Dubai, Egypt, the Amazon basin, everything is turning to ice. The reporter says that experts from 46 countries are meeting at the UN to discuss the climate anomaly, and that experts say the cold wave will not last long. He asks the population to remain calm, not believe rumors, and avoid stockpiling supplies. The government guarantees that the disaster will soon pass. Han Feng in his apartment watches the news and says that the government is lying. If he hadn't died and gone back in time, he might have believed them. He won't fall for that again, and he's prepared this time. Our hero looks at his food supply and confirms that the supplies are complete, the house is reinforced, and the heating system is ready. Han Feng smiles, satisfied, and says that he doesn't need to worry about survival for now. But out of nowhere, our little boy starts receiving several notifications on his cell phone. Han Feng reads the messages from the group of residents, where they comment on the snowfall and the cold, and is surprised by the number of people talking about the subject. Liu Yan, in a message in the group, says that the snow is falling even harder and that the temperature should be around -15 degrees. A mysterious person sends a message in the group, asking for attention from the people of the New World. The mysterious person says that the blizzard was not caused by normal weather patterns, but by something within the Earth itself. She asks them to remember her words. This is no ordinary blizzard. Then she announces that the Ice Age apocalypse is about to begin. Han Feng wonders who that person is and how he knows about the apocalypse.